Hey, what's up guys, it's Talon. Today I'm here to talk about why playing carry champs is often a mistake and why people lean too heavily towards carry champions and it kind of leads to a false sense of playing well when in reality it will lead to a lot more losses. And the reason for this is because everyone's going to have bad games, everyone's going to lose games, but when you're playing a carry champion, you're very useless from behind most of the time, due to the fact that most carry champions are very reliant on damage, meaning they need a lot of gold to deal that damage. So a champion like Akali, for example, doesn't play super well from behind. Now, Akali's maybe not, because Akali can still one-shot squishies when she's behind. But champions like Jace, I mean Akali to an extent, or any assassin who really relies on one-shotting the enemy, when they get behind and the enemy itemizes against them correctly, they're really not very useful. Additionally, we've all played, games where we have a ton of carry champions or a ton of ADCs or things like that, where we have no real way to engage. So you don't really have a way to start a fight, and you just have to rely on poking or on counter engaging after your enemy engage on you. And it just leads to a lot less consistent fights, and basically means that you need a bigger lead to be winning these games. So in my opinion, most people need to be kind of more willing to play these less carry champions, but champions that can still do well with the gold lead. So for me, for example, in top lane, I have a lot more success playing Wukong than Fiora, because Wukong can still do really well with the lead, still is a very strong laner, still can split push to an extent, but is much better in team fights and much better from behind. So even if you have a bad early game and your game doesn't go well, if you end up having some people on your team do well, you're going to be more likely to get carried in games, because of the fact that you have CC and you just have more utility in general as a champion. Obviously a lot of people will worry about, having tanks on their team or other things like that, but they won't play champions that can do that themselves. So if you're, for example, again, in a Akali main, it's just going to lead to more games where you feel like you do really well, but you still lose the game, and you did do well probably, but in reality, you're not going to be able to win unless you're really hard carrying these games. Another thing about playing carries is that when you do well on a carry champion, your team has to obviously play well around you as well, because you can't simply do everything on your own. But if you're playing a champion where you get fed, but you also have the ability to engage and just provide a lot more utility to your team, it leads to more consistent results and the ability to really control the outcome of the game more on your own, and you have more of the ability to dictate what goes on. For example, many AD carry players definitely feel the pain of having to, rely on your tank support to engage for you, or your tank top laner or whatever. Your tanks, your beefier champions, they have to make the decisions and you simply follow up on them. So for example, if you're playing in ADC in mid lane, such as Lucian, who's a pretty good mid laner, you do have to rely very heavily on other people playing well as well. So you might get an early lead and play very well, and your KDA might end up being very high in that game. But because of the champion you chose and the role you decided to play, if your teammates don't fill the other roles needed, then you're simply just going to have a rough time, and you're going to have to really, really hard carry the game and play nearly perfectly to win those games. So just simply playing these carry champions causes you to have a lot less room for error, because if you are the one taking the resources, taking the gold, that means that one death or one mistake from you is much more detrimental than dying while playing a tank champion, or dying while playing, a bruiser who has more the ability to come back in games using their engage and their CC tools to facilitate the rest of their team. So I just think in general, I'm kind of trying to explain to you guys, I do think it's good to know carry champions and then pick them based on team comp. So I generally, as a top lane player, I'm just using top lane as an example, but this really works in any role. I want to have like a split pushing carry in my champ pool, and I also want to have kind of a tank or bruiser that has good CC and good engage opportunities. So for me right now, it's kind of Wukong and Fiora being that carry champion, Wukong being more of the facilitator for my team, and I found that works really well. So if I have tanks and other things in the rest of my map, I might play Fiora and decide I want to try to hard carry the game. But if I, don't see that on my team yet, I'll pick the Wukong, and I'll more just kind of be able to be more versatile in the game. I can still carry the game if I have a really good early game and stomp my lane, but at the same time, if I do poorly, all I really need is one or two good players on the rest of my team, and then if I'm able to make some good engages for them, they're often able to carry the game. And then the next thing about carry champions, guys, is it's a lot harder to unlock their maximum potential. What I mean by the maximum potential is essentially the max that you could get out of the kit. So a champion like Lee Sin has a lot of ways to outplay people. He has a lot of different mechanics and combos you can do, or like Zed. These types of champs, right? They have a lot of different things you can do with them. Their kits are more versatile. They have more things to think about, more things to keep track of, all of this. What does this mean? It means that their kits will be balanced more around the fact that they have so much potential, which is why you see champions like Akali, like Lee Sin, often have lower win rates in the lower elos, because people simply aren't able to unlock the maximum potential of the champion. And even in the higher elos, this is still true, where a champion who is much more straightforward, much simpler to use, much simpler to get max value out of, does not require, you know, you to be so mechanically proficient to unlock the value out of their kit. So a champion like Wukong, it's very straightforward what I need to do on them. I need to use my third ability onto someone, maybe use W to have a clone, and then ult, and then I get, you know, I get maximum value out of my ultimate in whatever way I can, and then I'm making sure to use my Q as an auto reset to get damage as quick as possible. If I'm playing Akali, I have to make sure that, one, I'm landing my skill shot of my E, which is already kind of difficult. I have to make sure I'm getting maximum damage on people before I ult them so that it executes them. I have to click buttons a lot faster because there's more to think about. I'm squishier, so I have to think more about my own health in the fight. I don't have CC, meaning I can't stop others from doing damage to me. There's just a lot more to think about, a lot more mechanics to do, and a lot more, you have to avoid a lot more things without, you know, the fallback of CC or of being tanky. So it's just a lot more punishing when you make a mistake. And the reality is, we're not all, you know, faker. We're not all able to do this, where we can play every champ mechanically perfectly. The reality is, we might not have as much time to play the game, or you guys might not have as much time to play the game, so you have to try to win the games by playing these easier champions. And I do think that genuinely it will make it easier to climb if you're just not always playing such difficult champions. Now, of course, if you have fun with them, there's no issue with playing them. If you want to have fun with a carry champ and you really enjoy playing one champ specifically, and the reason you play the game is because you like Akali, then obviously you should be playing the difficult champ and having fun with the game, because it's a video game. You should have fun with it. I just wanted to talk to you guys about my thoughts on why carry champions are sometimes a trap, why people feel like they're doing more than they actually are on carry champions, because the potential is so high. Again, you might go for a sick outplay on Akali, but it doesn't actually result in much, because like a sick outplay on Akali could lead to 1 kill, but just doing a very basic combo on Wukong could also lead to 1 kill. So the result is the same, but the amount of inputs that you have to make on these carry champions and the amount of mistakes you have to avoid on these carry champions is so much higher than the simple execution of a straightforward champ like Garen, Wukong, you know, even like a simple ADC like Ashe. Just all of these things, in my opinion, is one way you guys could potentially climb quicker, is by not relying so much on mechanics and so much on really difficult champs, and just playing more straightforward champs, playing more for your team, at least when you're behind, and just really understanding how to get carried. I think it's a very important skill to understand how to get carried in Wild Rift, and to not always think of yourself as the main character. Of course, when you end up doing well and you play well in the game, you should go for the carry. You should try to 1v9 the games. And as I talked about in that earlier jungle video, I often will play jungle to 1v9, but there's definite downsides to it, and I wanted to talk to you guys about those today. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And once again, I'm sorry for not uploading for a couple days. I've been a bit burnt out from the game, so I'm just might not be uploading as frequently. We'll see how much I enjoy the game. Just gonna kind of upload when I feel like it, upload videos that I actually want to talk about, and not just like make a video just for the sake of making a video. But anyways, again, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.